dual is a grammatical number that some languages use in addition to singular and plural. When a noun or pronoun appears in dual form, it is interpreted as referring to precisely two of the entities identified by the noun or pronoun. Verbs can also have dual agreement forms in these languages. The dual number existed in Proto-Indo-European. It persisted in many of the ancient Indo-European languages that descended from it, such as ancient Greek and Sanskrit, which still uses dual forms across nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and Gothic, which use dual forms in pronouns and verbs. It can still be found in a few modern Indo-European languages such as Scottish Gaelic, Slovenian, and Sorbian. Many more modern Indo-European languages show residual traces of the dual, as in the English distinctions both versus all, either versus any, neither versus none, and so on. Many Semitic languages also have dual number. For instance, in Arabic, an is added to the end of any noun to indicate that it is dual. It is also present in those Khoisan languages that have a rich inflectional morphology, particularly co-languages. Comparative characteristics. Many languages make a distinction between singular and plural. English, for example, distinguishes between man and men, or house and houses. In some languages, in addition to such singular and plural forms, there is also a dual form, which is used when exactly two people or things are meant. In many languages with dual forms, use of the dual is mandatory, as in some Arabic dialects using dual in nouns, as in Hafsi Arabic, and the plural is used only for groups greater than two. However, use of the dual is optional in some languages such as other modern Arabic dialects including Egyptian Arabic. In other languages such as Hebrew, the dual exists only for words naming time spans, a few measure words, and for words that naturally come in pairs and are not used in the plural except in rhetoric, eyes, ears, and so forth. In Slovene, the use of the dual is mandatory, except for nouns that are natural pairs, such as trousers, eyes, for which the plural form can be used. Although relatively few languages have the dual number and most have no number or only singular and plural, using different words for groups of two and groups greater than two is not uncommon. English has words distinguishing dual versus plural number, including both, all, either, any, neither, none, between, among, former, first, and latter, last. Japanese, which has no grammatical number, also has words era and door, etc. Use in modern languages. Among living languages, modern Standard Arabic has a mandatory dual number marked on nouns, verbs, adjectives and pronouns. Many of the spoken Arabic dialects have a dual marking for nouns, and its use can be mandatory in some dialects, and not mandatory in others. Likewise, Akkadian had a dual number, though its use was confined to standard phrases like two hands, two eyes, and two arms. The dual in Hebrew has also atrophied, generally being used for only time, number, and natural pairs even in its most ancient form. Inuktitut and the related Central Alaskan Yupik language used dual forms, however, the related Greenlandic language does not. Koko-Gawaba and other co-languages mark dual number in the person-gender numbering clitics, though the neuter gender does not have a dual form. Austronesian languages, particularly Polynesian languages such as Hawaiian, Niuean and Tongan, possess a dual number for pronouns but not for nouns, as nouns are generally marked for plural syntactically and not morphologically. Other Austronesian languages, particularly those spoken in the Philippines, have a dual first-person pronoun. These languages include Ilocano, Tausug and Kapampangan. These forms mean we, but specifically you and I. This form once existed in Tagalog but has disappeared from standard usage since the middle of the 20th century, with kita as the only surviving form. The dual was a standard feature of the Proto-Uralic language, and lives on in Sami languages and Samoyedic languages, while other branches like Finnish, Estonian and Hungarian have lost it. Sami also features dual pronouns, expressing the concept of we too here as contrasted to we. Nenes, two closely related Samoyedic languages, features a complete set of dual possessive suffixes for two systems: the number of possesses and the number of possessed objects. The dual form is also used in several modern Indo-European languages, such as Scottish Gaelic, Slovenian, Frisian and Sorbian. The dual was a common feature of all early Slavic languages at the beginning of the second millennium CE. Arabic. In modern Standard Arabic, as well as in Classical Arabic, the use of dual is compulsory when describing two units. For this purpose, an is added to the end of any noun or adjective regardless of gender or of how the plural is being formed. In the case of feminine nouns ending with ta, ma, butha, this letter becomes a ta. When the dual noun or adjective is rendered in the genitive or accusative forms, the an becomes ain. Besides the noun and adjective dual, there are also dual verb forms of compulsory use for second and third person, together with the pronouns, but none for the first person. The use of dual in spoken Arabic varies widely and is mostly rendered ain even when in nominative context, whereas its use is quite common in Levantine Arabic, for instance kilowain meaning 2 kilograms. Dual forms are generally not used in Maghrebi Arabic, where two units are commonly expressed with the word zu, as in zu kilo meaning a pair of kilograms, with the noun appearing in singular. In nearly all spoken Arabic variants, the dual verb forms are not used. Plural is used instead. Hebrew. Biblical and Mishnaic Hebrew. In Biblical, Mishnaic, and Medieval Hebrew, like Arabic and other Semitic languages, all nouns can have singular, plural or dual forms, and there is still a debate whether there are vestiges of dual verbal forms and pronouns. However, in practice, most nouns use only singular and plural forms. Usually im is added to masculine words to make them plural, for example, sefer, spherum, book, books, whilst with feminine nouns the a is replaced with o. For example, parrot, parrot, cow, cows. An example of the dual form is yom, yomayim, jamam, day, 2 days, days. Some words occur so often in pairs that the form with the dual suffix im is used in practice for the general plural, such as ein, enim, eyes, used even in a sentence like the spider has 8 eyes. Thus words like enim only appear to be dual, but are in fact what is called pseudo-dual, which is a way of making a plural. Sometimes words can change meaning depending on whether the dual or plural form is used. For example, iron can mean a water spring in the singular, but in the plural eyes will take the dual form of enim, whilst springs are a not. Adjectives, verbs, and pronouns have only singular and plural, with the plural forms of these being used with dual nouns. Modern Hebrew. In modern Hebrew as used in Israel, there is also a dual number, but its use is very restricted. The dual form is usually used in expressions of time and number. These nouns have plurals as well, which are used for numbers higher than 2. For example, the pseudo-dual is used to form the plural of some body parts, garments, etc. For instance, ear acute gel raglaim, ozen osnaim shen shinaim miim na al na alaim. ge acuta ev garbium. In this case, even if there are more than two, the dual is still used. For instance, loke acuta levi yeshaba raglime. Another case of the pseudo-dual is dual tantum nouns, nekuditime afanam mishkafime sohorwime, shamam misprayim co-languages. In Nama, male and female nouns have a singular, dual and plural, while neuter nouns only have singular and plural number. According to Gelderman, the non-Caucasian languages do not have dual number marking of nouns. In Indo-European languages, the category of dual can be reconstructed for Proto-Indo-European, the ancestor of all Indo-European languages, and it has been retained as a fully functioning category in the earliest attested daughter languages. The best evidence for the dual among ancient Indo-European languages can be found in Old Indo-Iranian, Homeric Greek and Old Church Slavonic, where its use was obligatory for all inflected categories including verbs, nouns, adjectives, pronouns and some numerals. Various traces of dual can also be found in Gothic and Old Irish, and in some fossilized terms in Latin. Due to the scarcity of evidence, the reconstruction of dual endings for Proto-Indo-European is difficult, but at least formally according to the comparative method it can be ascertained that no more than 3 dual endings are reconstructable for nominal inflection. Mallory and Amp Adams reconstruct the dual endings as nominative, accusative, vocative, *h, genitive, ablative, *h, *os, dative, *me, *o, locative, *h, ow, instrumental, *bih. The Proto-Indo-European category of dual did not only denote two of something, it could also be used as an associative marker, the so-called elliptical dual. For example, the Vedic deity Mitra, when appearing in dual form Mitra, refers to both Mitra and his companion Varuna. Homeric dual Alpha Alpha Nu Tau Epsilon refers to Ajax the Greater and his fighting companion Teucer, and Latin plural Castors is used to denote both the semigod Castor and his twin brother Pollux. Beside nominal, the dual was also present in verbal inflection where the syncretism was much lower. Of living Indo-European languages, the dual can be found in dialects of Scottish Gaelic, but fully functioning as a paradigmatic category only in Sorbian, Charkavian and Slovene. Remnants of the dual can be found in many of the remaining daughter languages, where certain forms of the noun are used with the number 2. Sanskrit. The dual is widely used in Sanskrit, as noted above. Its use is mandatory when the number of objects is 2, and the plural is not permitted in this case, with one exception. It is always indicated by the declensional suffix. For nouns, the dual forms of the same in the following sets of cases, with examples for the masculine noun bala, nominative, accusative, bala, instrumental, dative, ablative, balabime, genitive, locative, balayo. In Sanskrit, adjectives are treated the same as nouns as far as case declensions are concerned. As for pronouns, the same rules apply, except for a few special forms used in some cases. Verbs have distinct dual forms in the 3 persons in both the Atmanpada and Parasmapada forms of verbs. For instance, the root bak, meaning to cook, takes the following forms in the dual number of the present tense, called lat lakara. The one exception to the rigidness about dual number is in the case of the pronoun asmad. Sanskrit grammar permits one to use the plural number for asmad even if the actual number of objects denoted is 1 or 2. For example, while aham bravimi, avam brova and valim broma are respectively the singular, dual and plural forms of I say and we say, Volume can be used in the singular and dual sense as well. Greek. The dual can be found in ancient Greek Homeric texts such as the Iliad and the Odyssey, although its use is only sporadic, owing as much to artistic prerogatives as dictional and metrical requirements within the hexametric meter. There were only two distinct forms of the dual in ancient Greek. In classical Greek, the dual was all but lost, except in the Attic dialect of Athens, where it persisted until the 5th century BC. Even in this case, its use depended on the author and certain stock expressions. In Con Greek and Modern Greek, the only remnant of the dual is the numeral for 2, delta upsilon omicron, dyo, which has lost its genitive and dative cases and retains its nominative, accusative form. Thus it appears to be undeclined in all cases. Nevertheless, Aristophanes of Byzantium, the foremost authority of his time on grammar and style, and a staunch defender of proper Hiatic tradition, admonishes those who write DC rather than the correct When. Latin. The dual was lost in Latin and its sister Italic languages. However, certain fossilized forms remained, for example, Vigente, but Trigenta, the words ambo, duo, duo with a dual declension. Celtic languages reconstructed common Celtic nominal and adjectival declensions contain distinct dual forms. Pronouns and verbs do not. In Old Irish, nouns and the definite articles still have dual forms, but only when accompanied by the numeral da too. Traces of the dual remain in Middle Welsh, in nouns denoting pairs of body parts that incorporate the numeral two, e.g. dulan, twiglust. In the modern languages, there are still significant remnants of dual number in Scottish Gaelic in nominal phrases containing the numeral da, as the following table shows. Da combines with a singular noun, which is lenited. Masculine nouns take no special inflection, but feminine nouns have a slenderized dual form, which is in fact identical to the dative singular. Languages of the Brythonic branch do not have dual number. Is mentioned above for Middle Welsh. Some nouns can be said to have dual forms, prefixed with a form of the numeral two. This process is not fully productive, however, and the prefixed forms are semantically restricted. For example, Brett and down can only refer to one person's pair of hands, not any two hands from two different people. Welsh doifis must refer to a period of 2 consecutive months, whereas doifis can be any 2 months. Germanic languages. The dual was present in all the early Germanic languages, as well as in Proto-Germanic. However, the dual had been entirely lost in nouns by that time, and since verbs agreed with nouns in number, so had the third-person dual form of verbs as a result. The dual therefore remained only in the first and second-person pronouns and their accompanying verb forms. Gothic retained this situation more or less unchanged. It had markings for the first and second person for both the verbs and pronouns. For example, wit, we too, as compared to wise, we, more than two. Old English, Old Norse and the other Old Germanic languages had dual marking only in the personal pronouns but not in the verbs. The dual has disappeared as a productive form in all the living languages, with loss of the dual occurring in North Frisian dialects only quite recently. In Austro-Bavarian, the old dual pronouns have replaced the standard plural pronouns, for example, accusative and you plural. A similar development in the pronoun system can be seen in Icelandic and Faroese. Another remnant of the dual can be found in the use of the pronoun beg in the Scandinavian languages of Norwegian and Danish, bag in Swedish and batir, bethi in Faroese and Icelandic. In these languages, in order to state Old Plus number, the constructions are beg to, batir to ver, bethi tvar, bethi tvey, but altre, alatrigia, oll tri, while the form asterisk al to is unattested. In German, the expression "but" is equivalent to, though more commonly used than, als fi. Norwegian nynorsk also retains the conjunction "korgia" and its inverse, korgia. Another example of a lost dual exists in the Faroese ordinals first and second, which can be translated two ways. First, there is fyri and seni, which mean the first and second of two respectively, while fyrsti and anna mean first and second of more than two. Baltic languages. Among the Baltic languages, the dual form existed but is now nearly obsolete in Standard Lithuanian. It can be occasionally found in poetic contexts and some dialects. The dual form du litu was still used on 2 liters coins issued in 1925, but the plural form is used on modern 2 liters coins. Slavic languages. Common Slavic had a complete singular dual plural number system, although the nominal dual paradigms showed considerable syncretism, just as they did in Proto-Indo-European. Dual was fully operable at the time of Old Church Slavonic manuscript writings, and it has been subsequently lost in most Slavic dialects in the historical period. Of the living languages, only Slovene, Charkavian and Sorbian have preserved the dual number as a productive form. In all of the remaining languages, its influence is still found in the declension of nouns, of which there are commonly only two: eyes, ears, shoulders, in certain fixed expressions, and the agreement of nouns when used with numbers. In all the languages, the words to and both preserve characteristics of the dual declension. The following table shows a selection of forms for the numeral to. Notes: in some Slavic languages, there is a further distinction between animate and inanimate masculine nouns. In Polish, for animate masculine nouns, the possible nominative forms are dwaj or dwok. Variant form for the masculine, neuter locative and instrumental in Serbo-Croatian, dvjim. In Common Slavic, the rules were relatively simple for determining the appropriate case and number form of the noun, when it was used with a numeral. The following rules apply. With the numeral 1, both the noun, adjective, and numeral were in the same singular case, with the numeral being declined as an pronoun. With the numeral 2, both the noun, adjective, and numeral were in the same dual case. There were separate forms for the masculine and neuter feminine nouns. With the numerals 3 and 4, the noun, adjective, and numeral were in the same plural case. With any numeral above 4, the numeral was followed by the noun and adjective in the genitive plural case. The numeral itself was actually a numeral noun that was declined according to its syntactic function. With the loss of the dual in most of the Slavic languages, the above pattern now is only seen in the forms of the numbers for the tens, hundreds, and rarely thousands. This can be seen by examining the following table. The common Slavic rules governing the declension of nouns after numerals, which were described above, have been preserved in Slovene. In those Slavic languages that have lost the dual, the system has been simplified and changed in various ways, but many languages have kept traces of the dual in it. In general, Czech, Slovak, Polish, and Ukrainian have extended the pattern of 3, 4 to 2. Russian, Belarusian, and Serbo-Croatian have, on the contrary, extended the pattern of 2 to 3, 4, and Bulgarian and Macedonian have extended the pattern of 2 to all numerals. The resulting systems are as follows. In Czech, Slovak, Polish, and Ukrainian, numerals from 2 to 4 are always followed by a noun in the same plural case, but higher numerals are followed by a noun in the genitive plural. In Belarusian and Serbo-Croatian, numerals from 2 to 4 are followed by a noun in a form originating from the common Slavic nominative dual, which has now completely or almost completely merged with the genitive singular. High numerals are followed by a noun in the genitive plural. In Russian, the form of noun following the numeral is nominative singular if the numeral ends in 1, genitive singular if the numeral ends in 2 to 4, and genitive plural otherwise. As an exception, the form of noun is also genitive plural if the numeral ends in 11 to 14. Also, some words have a special count form for use in numerical phrases instead of genitive, for example, and. In Bulgarian and Macedonian, all numerals are followed by a noun in a form originating from the common Slavic nominative dual, which has now been reinterpreted as a count form or quantitative plural. These different systems are exemplified in the table below, where the word wolf is used to form nominative noun phrases with various numerals. The dual and forms originating from it are underlined. The dual has also left traces in the declension of nouns describing body parts that humans customarily had two of, for example, eyes, ears, legs, breasts, and hands. Often the plural declension is used to give a figurative meaning. The table below summarizes the key such points. Slovene, along with the Sorbian languages, Charkavian dialect, and the extinct Old Church Slavonic, Slovene uses the dual, although popular sources claim that Slovene has preserved full grammatical use of the dual. Standard Slovene shows significant reduction of the dual number system when compared with Common Slavic. In general, dual forms have a tendency to be replaced by plural forms. This tendency is stronger in oblique cases than in the nominative accusative. In Standard Slovene, genitive and locative forms have merged with the plural, and in many dialects, pluralization has extended to dative instrumental forms. Dual inflection is better preserved in masculine forms than in feminine forms. Natural pairs are usually expressed with the plural in Slovene, not with the dual, e.g. rok, hands, users are ears. The dual forms of such nouns can be used in conjunction with the quantifiers deva, two, or oba, both to emphasize the number, e.g. Imam Samo dve rocky, I only have 2 hands. The words for parents and twins show variation in colloquial Slovene between plural and dual. Standard Slovene has replaced the nominative dual pronouns of Common Slavic with new synthetic dual forms, midva, vidva, onadva, onadve, onadve. Nominative case of noun folk, wolf, with and without numerals. The dual is recognized by many Slovene speakers as one of the most distinctive features of the language and a mark of recognition, and is often mentioned in tourist brochures. For verbs, the endings in the present tense are given as Virginia, ta, ta. The table below shows a comparison of the conjugation of the verb delt, which means to do, to make, to work, and belongs to class 4 in the singular, dual, and plural. In the imperative, the endings are given as either for the first-person dual and eta for the second-person dual. The table below shows the imperative forms for the verb hoditi in the first and second persons of the imperative. Sorbian language. As in Slovenian, the Sorbian language has preserved the dual. For nouns, the following endings are used. The genitive form is based on the plural form of the noun. The e ending causes various softening changes to occur to the preceding consonant. For further information, see the article on Sorbian. For example, the declension of sin and crow in the dual in Upper Sorbian would be given as for verbs. The endings in the present tense are given as moj, tajtaj, tajtaj. The table below shows a comparison of the conjugation of the verb pisak, which means to write, and belongs to class 1 in the singular, dual, and plural. Languages with dual number. Austronesian languages, Tagalog language, Cebuano language, Ilocano language, Polynesian languages, Maori Samoan, Tongan Tahitian Hawaiian Chamorro, Khoisan languages, Ko languages. Indo-European languages: Avestan, Ancient Greek, Germanic languages, Frisian, Gothic, Old English, Insular Celtic languages, Old Irish, Scottish, Gaelic, Old Church, Slavonic, Old East Slavic, Sanskrit, Slovene, Charkavian, Sorbian languages, Lower Sorbian, Upper Sorbian, Uralic languages, Khanty, Mansi, Menes Sami languages, Afroasiatic languages, Akkadian, Arabic, Biblical Hebrew, Egyptian, Maltese. Other languages: Mapuzungun, Hmong Lakota, Mimaq, Inuktitut, Yug and Ograb. American Sign Language, Quenya Kartikunama language, Melanesian Pidgin.